Hi, I'm Lori Spielman, your first selectman for the town of Ellington. And I want to just say and thank everybody at CVC. This is our 90th show, which I think is great. We're really trying to get the word out to all of our residents and even surrounding towns of what is going on about the budget and different things of how it's changing. I have John Rinaldi. He's my guest for today. He is our town assessor. Welcome, John.
Thank you. Great to be back here.
Yeah, it's wonderful. So, what's going on? Let's start with our veterans. People
Yep.
first they wonder why our taxes have increased right now. We're not done with the budget, but these are some of the hurdles that we are going through.
Well, we have right now. It's the middle of March, end of March, so we have the homeowners program, which is for seniors who are 65 or older and meet the income guidelines, and that'll also increase the veterans exemption. The income guidelines this year, which are set by the state, are $45,200 for unmarried and $55,100 for married. Now, the applications are due by May 15th. The application period is February 1st to May 15th. You mentioned other towns. This is a statewide program, so the same thing should apply if you live in a different town. With the veterans, what that would do, if you go to the additional veterans program, it would increase your exemption in Ellington from $6,000 of assessment, which is about $220 in taxes, to $17,000 of assessment, which is about $620 in taxes. Now, the addition to that this year was a program for 100% permanently and totally disabled veterans. And that was initially passed last year without the 100% on it. And what that does is it exempts the entire dwelling, the structure, the house. So if you have a house real estate assessment, you would still pay taxes on your land, but you wouldn't pay any taxes on your house. We initially were believed, the initial assessment we had was we'd have about 11 people in Ellington who qualified. We wound up with over 40. Between real estate and motor vehicles, we have about 40. So that was adjusted earlier this month in March. So we wound up removing 4 people, which was a difficult conversation to have with them. But we still have about 30 on the real estate, and the rest would be either motor vehicles or people who didn't own their house yet as of the October 1st, 2024 assessment date.
Now, I agree with helping the veterans. I don't understand why we didn't do this years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And why the state just decided to do this now, which I think is fine, but the state never gave the towns any help or any provisions to offset this. So it leaves the towns, the governor said he never raised taxes. He doesn't raise taxes, but he puts this on the towns, and I don't think it's fair.
Well, that's true. There is a reimbursement on the original veterans to a certain extent, but there's nothing added for the new exemption.
Yeah, and it makes it very, very difficult for us. Well, continue.
Yep. So with these exemptions, we're going into a revaluation year in Ellington. 2025 is a revaluation year. And we want to make sure that the first thing people do is if they believe they are eligible for a veterans exemption or a senior homeowners exemption, they contact us. Again, you have till May 15th to apply. Now, we're getting out in the community. I've already done several presentations. I have several left. It's on our website. April 24th, I'll be at the Senior Center at 1 o'clock. Earth Day on April 26th, the Saturday. I'm not doing a presentation, but I'll be at our Earth Day celebration, and I'll be passing out applications and brochures to people who want them and explaining what the exemptions mean, what we're doing with the revaluation. And then April 29th and May 6th, I'll be at the library. So we do have several presentations scheduled. And as we get further past the spring and into more of the revaluation stuff, we'll be scheduling more on those. So if anybody has any questions about whether or not they qualify for any of these exemptions, please contact us. All our information's on our website. We're at the town hall. We're there to 6:30 on Mondays, 4:30 on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Come in and see us, because we know there are people out there who are still eligible for these. I had a situation just a few months ago where somebody came in who was a Vietnam veteran and didn't realize that he was eligible for a veterans exemption. He'd been eligible for over 50 years.
Oh.
So we want to find those people. We want to get them in.
Yeah, they deserve it.
Yeah. So, and then also with the revaluation, every 5 years, Connecticut municipalities have to do a real estate revaluation. If you don't live in Ellington, your town either recently did one or is doing one or is going to do one soon. The last one in Ellington was for October 1st, 2020. We now have to update those values to October 1st, 2025. The reason that's important is we have to do it, or we can't not do it. We're mandated by statute to do it. And people, we want them to understand what's going to happen. The values for residential real estate, and really for all real estate, have increased since October 1st, 2020. I have a PowerPoint that I've been presenting. I presented it at the prior talks. I'll present it at the upcoming talks. And we have real life examples of sales in Ellington that have happened since 2020. Some of these houses sold in 2019 or 2020 and sold again in 2024. We're going to be adding some 2025 sales soon. And I've got 4 actual sales that were not handpicked. They were just randomly selected in my PowerPoint. One of them went up 52% in value.
Boy.
Another one was 65.7. Another one was 67.4. And another one was 77. So what we want people to understand is in November, when you get your notice, November of 2025, don't be surprised if your assessment goes up quite a bit. Now, a revaluation doesn't change the total amount of taxes that are paid in town, but it changes individual tax bills. If the budget were the same, some would go up, some would go down. Budget, of course, probably isn't going to be the same. It's every year there's more of a push for, as you talked about earlier, with grant money and things drying up or not being renewed or not being extended, then there's more of an emphasis on that. So we have to look at the totality of what we do. Our job as assessors is to revalue all of the real estate in town, all 6,700 parcels. And we have to update those all as of the same date, which will be October 1st, 2025. We're working on that now, and November the notices will be out.
So, John, maybe you can explain a little bit more of how the assessment works. Do you notify the homeowners that somebody is coming out? No, so we have a company that does this.
Correct.
Who notifies you, and do they come into your house? What happens?
This revaluation is a little bit different from the one done in 2020. In 2020, it was a full measure and list reval where somebody goes out to every house and looks. Now, COVID got in the middle of that and wound up doing a little bit less of that because once COVID started, it was very hard to send people inside everybody's houses. That just during the shutdown, that wasn't going to happen. So we did data mailers. This revaluation is not a full measure and list. You do that every other revaluation. But our revaluation vendor will be looking at sales properties. They'll be verifying the sales information. As you mentioned, we have a vendor for this. We went out to bid over a year ago, and there's primarily 3 or 4 companies that do revaluations in Connecticut. We hired the one that bid. We only received 1 bid, which was disappointing, but we hired them. They had done East Windsor's reval last year, and we paid slightly more than that, but it was, pretty much inflation, cost of living type of cost. So they didn't hit us hard with the price. And we're working with them now. We're setting up a meeting with them to go over our schedule again soon because we have preliminary schedule. We want to finalize that. So what will happen is they'll be on the ground looking at sales this spring and this summer. And then we'll be working with them towards the end of the summer. As a matter of practice, our office updates assessments every year based on work that is done. If somebody builds an addition or they put in a pool or they build a new garage or they tear down an old garage, we go out and we follow up on all the building permit work. So we have data that's pretty good, even though we're not doing the full measure and list this time, we still have the information available to us based on the permit work. So we'll have all that in our system. And then we're looking mid-November will be the date that people get the notice from us in the mail. They will also be put on our website as normal. And at that point in time, there will be what's called the informal hearing. If somebody disagrees with their assessment, then they would go to an informal hearing with the revaluation company. Now, I always say the best time for you to estimate your own value if you're a resident is before you see our value. If you see our value, you're going to be more predisposed to look for something lower. But you can go on our website now or Realtor.com or any other website and start looking at sales. Maybe one of your neighbors sold. I live in a condo. My wife and I live in a condo, and we know what our neighbors recently paid. So those are good indicators of value for your property if you refinanced or have an appraisal recently.
But back to somebody comes out to your house?
Only if it's a sale property.
Okay. Otherwise, nobody's coming out.
Otherwise, nobody's coming out this time. The reason that is, it's every other reval because of the cost. The most labor-intensive part of doing a reval is to send out somebody to look at every property, especially with thousands of them in town. So you do that every other cycle. The 2030 reval will do that again. So in November, people will get the notice and look at that notice. And if you have questions, call. Go set up an informal hearing with the revaluation company, because that's what that purpose is for. If there's something wrong, if they have, say they have you listed with 3 bathrooms and you've only got 2.5 or something like that, that's the time to find it. That's what we want to know. And then talk to them and go to the informal hearing if you wish, and see what they'll respond to that with a review, and then they will send out a second notice. If they change it or don't change it, you'll still get a second notice. This is about value. This is not about taxes. The only question we're looking at in the reval is, what is your property worth? The tax bills will come out in July of 2026. So what's going to happen with the informal hearings in November of 2025 is, 9 months, 8 months before you're going to see a tax bill. That's the time to look at this. Then after the informal hearings go, we put everything back together with the real estate. We add to that our motor vehicles, which changed this year to an MSRP depreciation formula differently than what we've done in the past. And we add in the personal property for businesses, and we sign the grant list in January. That'll be January of 2026. And then we have Board of Assessment Appeals after that. If people go to the informal hearing and they don't like the decision that came out, you can appeal it to the Board of Assessment Appeals. We have a vacancy on that board for anybody who's interested. It's a Republican appointment, but we still have 1 vacancy on the Board of Assessment Appeals, which would be great to be full staff for a revaluation. All we ask is that you go in with an open mind and you listen to what people present and you consider what they say. So we'd love to get that board filled.
John, backing up to motor vehicle, maybe you can explain a little bit more. I don't know if you can explain why it changed and what is the difference. What I gather now, say, just round numbers, if I bought a vehicle that listed for $100,000, but I got it on sale and I only paid $75,000, you assess it on that 100 because it's book value?
Yes.
Not what I paid?
Correct.
That's...
What we did in the past since 1993 was use the NADA, which was bought by J.D. Power, book value, and we applied the mandated 70% assessment ratio to that. That was what we did for over 30 years. In 2022, that law was changed to an MSRP minus depreciation schedule, but it wasn't implemented until 2024.
Why did they change it? Do you have any idea? I know it's all state, right?
Yes, that's mandated by the state, that's correct. And if you go back to 2020 and 2021, during the COVID years, there was an enormous spike in used car values. So people were seeing significant increases in their car tax value. This was viewed as a way to adjust so that there wouldn't be those swings that you were getting during that era. What it applies is a MSRP, which, as you mentioned, if the MSRP was one number and you paid less, it's still going to be the MSRP. We expect, particularly with RVs, we expect a lot of people to be upset about that because RVs typically sell for significantly less than their MSRP value.
So how some people just can't get a break then? Like I said, you pay 100 or you list for 100 and you pay 75. Now you're back to full assessment and it's like, oh boy.
That's where the depreciation schedule comes in. As the car gets older, it depreciates on a set schedule. That was a change that was made, it was again earlier this month with the emergency action, the same one that put the veterans bill, adjusted this to a different depreciation schedule. So it's at 90% the first year, then it drops down to a residual of 20% after 15 years. So if you paid $100,000 for the car, we'd take $90,000 the first year and apply 70%. And then after 15 years, it would be 20% of value.
And even though you paid 75 for that, that is, boy, I'll tell you, I don't know what the state's thinking, but
that's the statute that was passed.
as a taxpayer, I'm not happy.
Well, it depends on who the taxpayer is. We're at the mill rate cap, so we know what that's going to be. A lot of people's motor vehicle bills will go down. Generally, if it's a newer car, probably won't. The older cars, some of the trailers, the commercial use trailers are still taxable, but private use, those Home Depot trailers that you see, those are all going to be exempted. So there won't be any tax at all on those. for personal use, not for business use. And as a car gets older, it will depreciate to a flat rate eventually.
I feel sorry. People save their money to buy the newest car they can afford.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like they buy a new car all the time.
No.
And here the state taxes on us. I think it's crazy.
Yeah, the formula we used in the past with the J.D. Power and NADA books was more indicative of the true value as of that year. Now, even that had faults on. Number one, it was very labor intensive, and number two, it didn't account for mileage, condition, damage, things like that. This now with the MSRP doesn't account for mileage, condition, or damage either, but it does give a fixed depreciation schedule moving forward. So if we do get a big spike like we did in COVID where used car values go up 15 or 20%, we're not going to see that in the future. The only other time we ever did something even close to that was in like 2009 when they did the cash for clunkers thing and a lot of the trucks were bought out. There was a big spike in remaining truck values. So that's the only time we saw anything close to that. This was more 2020, 2021 with COVID was more, across the board. My 2018 Jeep that I had was worth more in 2021 than what I paid for it in 2020. And this law was designed as a reaction to that. And there was a lot of action about it. It passed, it delayed for 2 years. It was modified during a special session last summer, and it was modified again last month with an emergency certification.
Wow.
So it changed a lot in a short time.
Yeah, it's hard. I don't know how you keep all this straight because they keep changing.
Yeah, it does change a lot, and it would be, hopefully now it's stabilized and we know where we are and we know what we're going to use moving forward. The good news with that is sometimes when vehicles get a lot older, if they become more in the classic variety, the tax bills go up a lot. You're not going to see that anymore if it's based on MSRP. Some of them were hard to find. I was talking with an assessor in another town when we were pricing cars in January, and she had a Jaguar from 1976, and the MSRP that they got for it was in British pounds. So they went up and looked what the exchange rate was in October of 1976. They found it online somehow, and that's how they calculated the MSRP in dollars. So sometimes you have to really go and find these things.
Wow.
But we didn't have anything like that in Ellington. But
how about if you have an older vehicle and you put the older plates in?
The antique plate, yes, you can still do that. Now, what that is, we also have an affidavit. If you don't put the antique plate on it, you can fill out the affidavit in our office and have a mechanic sign off. The vehicle is supposed to be maintained to the original manufacturer's specifications. So if you customize it, it wouldn't be eligible for that. Although some of them we've seen that get that plate on it do get customized, and those are pretty hard to. They don't come. See them every so often, but you don't see them a lot. But you get those. That is something that you can do. And another thing that we have quite a few of in Ellington, and most towns have, is if a vehicle is altered for a handicapped driver or handicapped passenger, that can be fully exempted with an affidavit that you bring to our office. Those are all on our website, and you can get those at ellingtonct.gov. Go to the assessor's page, and we have all that information there. And that's for people who have a handicapped accessible vehicle, it does give them a break.
I just want to bring up too, also on your page, if you scroll down, you have quite a few different categories.
Mm-hmm.
Scroll down to maps. You can go in and find your appraisal card and everything about your property or any property in town.
Yeah, and with the revaluation, that's going to be very, very helpful. Not only can you look at your property, you can look at similar properties. You can search for sales. You can put in criteria. Say you have a 3-bedroom ranch. You can search for other 3-bedroom ranches that's sold, and you can define that area around your house, or you can expand it if you don't find enough, or contract it if you find too many. That's very, very helpful to find, because we live in an age now where so much is online that it used to be getting a value meant calling an appraiser or just asking 50 people. You don't have to do that as much anymore because the information is so readily available on our website.
Yeah, there's a lot of information on your site, which is great.
And you can always appeal it if you disagree. If you feel your value is incorrect, then talk to us and we can explain that process to you.
That's good.
But the reval notices will be out first in about November.
All right.
So
What else is changing?
Well, we're same old, same old. What we do is the same every year. And it's you look up and you think, okay, it's April, I should be doing field work. So I intend to start my field work now, follow up on permits. We have, for the first time this year, we had with our crumbling foundations, which we have a lot of, we're one of the top 10 towns. First year, we've had more come off the reduction list than added to it.
Oh, that's
We're
great.
having more of these repaired every year. And this year we had more repaired than we had new applications. It's the first time that's happened in the 9 years since the Reduction Act passed in 2016. And CIFSIC, which is the captive insurance company that gives you the funding for people who have crumbling foundation houses, has now fixed over 1,000 houses.
Wow.
Since I think they started in 2018, they were formed in 2018. I think their first lift of a house was in 2019. So in 5.5 years, they've fixed over 1,000 houses. That's great for the people who live in those houses.
Last fall, we had another event at the high school with explaining how everything works. And so if there's any questions, that is on the town's website for
Yes.
crumbling foundations and how we can help.
Yep. And,
So I think it's great.
and those are, having been in, I was in another town, but when I was in Manchester, when it started, and here now, this is something that involves a lot of discussion with the owners because this is not how they planned. A lot of people, particularly in some of the places we have in town, where people downsized to a house, they sold their 4-bedroom colonial or Cape, and they bought a smaller condo or a ranch house, and they're in there for a couple of years, and they find out they got a crumbling foundation. It's a devastating problem to them because all their plans for what they were going to do in retirement and everything changed at that point. To have a captive insurance fund that the state set up to give you repair funds for that is an enormous benefit. It's a stress reliever for all the people who are in that position. As soon as they get on that list, they feel much better.
And it's not just you're replacing your foundation, you're replacing your walks, partial driveway. If your basement is finished, that's going to be all redone. Decks,
Well, they'll only pay for concrete, but the reduction in your tax savings from the years that you reduced it for us, in theory, is set up to help you do that. Put in new bushes, put in finished basement or
well,
things
people
like
have
that.
to think about that. It's not
Yes.
just focus on that. You have to focus on everything else because it's not included.
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's an amazing process when you see it because you drive by a house and they're just breaking through the foundation to put the beams in, and you come back 3 hours later and it's 8 feet in the air. It's an amazing, it doesn't look like it's hardly moving at all, but it's an amazing process to see that when it happens. And you come back and all of a sudden it's up in the air, and then they have to use very small equipment because they're under the house when they're ripping out the old foundation. They have to go very carefully. You don't want to hit the pilings. That could be very dangerous. So they use much smaller equipment. They have to excavate, pour the new foundation, let it cure, and then bring the old house down. And the contractors have gotten much better at this as they've gotten more experience. Several years back when they were first starting to do this, you were seeing more problems with the new foundation, with leaks and things like that. The house was built on the old foundation. The new foundation, even though it's in the same footprint, is never going to be exactly the same. Dimensions should be about right, but it's not going to be level at all the same points. It's going to need some shaving, some shimming, things like that. And they've gotten much, much better at that.
It's still a huge undertaking for people, and talk about stress. Oh, I just feel so bad.
You have to live somewhere else for 2-3 months.
Yeah, our
It's very difficult.
town administrator went through that all
Yes, he
last
did.
summer.
Yes, he did.
So
But that's an amazing problem. And to be to the point where now we're seeing fewer of them come on and more of them come off is just a great point to be in for us.
So just to give you a little update, our library, we have a new parking lot. All the landscaping is pretty much done. Our Public Works Department picked up the large, with a big footing, I don't know if you saw it, library sign, and put it right by the entrance now. All that we have left is we're going to replace a few shrubs that didn't make it through the winter, plus I'll plant some perennials around, and that project should be done. Also, our farmers market is going to be coming up, which is great, at our new location, right on Maple Street. It seems to work out very well. People are quite happy there. And we have Earth Day coming up, which you mentioned you're going to be there.
Yep.
And we're going to have a few of our other town officials being there also. Our new Public Works for our recycle, Sam will be there. any recycle questions or anything else. We have all sorts of things going on for Earth Day. And I think it's really important, and it's so great that our town employees take part in it and answer public's questions. You come out, there's a lot to see, a lot to do, and it's important to have you there, John, that people can just go, I was thinking about this. I have a question. And you can answer it right then and there.
Oh yeah, we'll have a lot of information there for everybody with a lot of what I talked about today, the exemptions for seniors and for veterans and revaluation, of course, but even basic questions. The biggest misconception we deal with is when people get rid of a car, they think the DMV is able to tell us. They're not. We have to depend on the taxpayer to tell us that. So we have a little brochure on that we'll be passing out. So there's a lot of information out there, but it should all be helpful.
Not only that, we just did a prior show about the budget, and we've got other budget meetings coming up with the Board of Finance. But we also have 3 different presentations before the final hearing. It's going to be at the Senior Center and also at the library. All this information is on our website. So if you can't make one, you have any questions, you can make another one, or please stop in and we can help answer the question. Or if you have an idea, that would be great too. We're always open for ideas, and we want to listen to our public.
Absolutely. Being part of those hearings, it's, there's a lot of information in there. There's many of them. There's one coming up at the high school, a public hearing there. And there's a lot in that budget. There's a lot to understand in it, and it's all on our website.
And the biggest part is Board of Ed.
Yep.
And you can only cut so much.
Yep.
But we have other expenses. Electricity has gone up just like everybody else's. So we have expenses too in town. But I think we do a great job. We have wonderful staff. So with that, John, do you have any follow-up?
I would just recommend that anybody who has any questions, contact us at Town Hall. Our information's on our webpage. And the presentations I'm doing, they're listed there too. We definitely want people to be involved. And I did one the other day at the Senior Center. There were about 8 people there. I'm hoping that we can, get many more people to attend these, especially when we get closer to the revaluation date, because the best thing you can have is knowledge of why this process is necessary and why we have to do it.
And was it last year or the year before we did come up with a senior discount?
Yes, the town added one in 2024, which mimics the state program with the same income, same age requirements. But what the local program does is if you're age 65 to 69, you qualify, you get $200 of additional tax relief. That's a credit, not a tax amount. That's a tax amount, not an assessment amount. And if you're over 70, you get $500. And you can get into easily with the homeowners program and the additional veterans, you can easily get into 4 figures of tax savings every year.
Great. So if anybody has any questions, please reach out to us. John, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching.
Thank you.